This time of year, you might see trees that have really bright white, showy flowers. This is a species called Callery pear, and locally we have a lot of what's called a cultivar of Bradford pear. This was a species that was brought over from China in the early 1900s, and the emphasis was to try to find a species that was less susceptible to native fire blight on pear trees. This is a species that we're concerned with because of its aggressive, invasive nature. So originally it was thought that this cultivar of Callery pear, Bradford pear here, could not produce viable offspring. Well, after enough time, we've learned that it can produce viable offspring, and now it's aggressively spreading in native habitats throughout Oklahoma. So Callery pear or Bradford pear can have a lot of nice traits that landowners want on their property. So it can have really bright, white, showy flowers, and in the fall, often you'll get a bright red foliage that's a really pretty fall color. Problems with the Callery pear include it can have substantial thorns. Of course, it spreads aggressively. It can outcompete native species. And you'll often see it in old fields or even in woodlands, filling in gaps left by other native tree species. So some more negatives to Callery pear include the offensive odor that comes from these trees. Also, you'll find these trees often in landscape settings in large parking lots around malls. And what can happen with those, they'll be good cover for birds later in the summer months when it gets hot. And a lot of birds in these trees will lead to a lot of defecation on cars in those parking lots. So certainly a lot of negatives to, again, a non-native invasive tree species. So some ways you can take care of Callery pear. Of course, a lot of people don't want to cut down a beautiful landscape tree, but you might consider replacing it with something native like redbud or a native pear species. Callery pear has become so aggressive and invasive that in some states, in some cities, there are buyback programs for an incentive to cut down a Callery pear tree and replace it with something native. Some states have gone as far as trying to outlaw these trees and try to provide incentives again for homeowners to replace them with something else, and for nurseries to stop stocking this particular cultivar. For more information on Bradford pear, go to the SunUp website.